Hey, good evening, folks. How are you? Welcome to the show. I want to apologize to everyone tuning in for the late start tonight. Life happened. Life happened. And as they say, life comes at you fast. So I ended up kind of stumbling over tonight's start time with some real world stuff that happened. But you know what is happening? I'm under these awesome new studio lights right here. These are some great studio lights that I have finally picked up. Um, and my lovely, lovely, lovely patrons helped me afford these lights. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Now, here's the thing. The power pack I have them on is rock solid. I don't know if it is a continual power pack. So if the lights kick off, it's not because they're bad lights or anything. If that happens, I'll just turn up the house lights. It'll take me a half a second. But I think everything is copacetic because it's been on the power pack now for like 10 minutes. And that's like 5 minutes more than the batteries of the old lights lasted. The old lights electrically were fine. It's just the battery packs were awful. And the cost of a dummy, which is a battery-like device you plug in to a thing that takes a camera battery, but you power it off of a wall or off a USB, is more often the case nowadays. A dummy for one of my old studio lights cost more than two new studio light setups that came with a USB dummy. So yeah, that just didn't make good horse sense. So we have these now, and you can see my smiling face. So they're quite lovely. But speaking of lovely things, speaking of things that we like, we have a lovely guest tonight. Now, if you folks, if there's anyone out there who has never been fortunate enough to catch an episode of the show with tonight's guest on, you're in for a treat. And for those of you who have seen the streams that I've done with tonight's guest, you're also in for a treat. I know I'm in for a treat. But without any further regard to who's treating what, ladies and gentlemen, welcome my guest tonight, Tracy Lesch. Tracy, good evening. How are you?
Captain, my captain, how you doing?
I am doing great, my friend. I'm doing really good. Sorry for keeping you. I was just kind of relating to everyone the nonsense that had gone on tonight and how it had just kind of tripped me up. But I trust you are in good health. It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. It has been a while.
It's been a minute or two. Yeah, it really has. It's been a minute or two since we last had you on the show. How have you been? How's your lovely wife?
Shelby is fantastic. She's enjoying our Monday night D&D shenanigans.
Good, good.
Yeah, definitely.
So for those of you out there in TV land who have been, I guess, living under a rock or something, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us your background. Now, I'm not going to make you do like the whole thing. I know you got other stuff going on you want to talk about. We'll get to new art. Everybody wants to see your art, but uh, for the sake of our audience who might not be as dialed in as the veterans of the show, tell us a little bit about yourself, Tracy.
Gotcha. Okay. So I guess we're going back to Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. That's what it sounds like here.
Just a little
Um,
bit.
no problem. So I got involved with D&D at around 14. I was in a junior high history class with one of Gary's daughters, and she sat behind me in history class and was always peering over my shoulder as I was doodling and drawing stuff on my notebook because I was just so damn bored in that class. Um, Well, she saw one of my drawings, and she was like, "Hey, could I? Would it be okay if I show this to my dad?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah, go ahead." And so I like gave her the notebook, and the next thing I knew, I was getting a phone call from Gary, and that's how we got involved. And before long, doing stuff for like right after Greyhawk, I did like the Blackmore supplement
Hmm.
and Eldritch Wizardry, and
Yes.
then started moving into other TSR games like Boot Hill.
Hmm.
Did work on Dungeon, the board game, uh, stuff in the Dragon magazine. Um, yeah, just a lot of stuff, and working alongside and taking my direction from Gary. And yeah, it was an interesting time. So that was like 75, 74, 75.
Wow. Wow. That is, I rarely get to say, as I've met some folks from back in the day, you know, but it's always a delight to get to talk to somebody who has been there and done that. But I mean, at 14, my God, I mean, did you back like did you have this sense? Everybody talks about Gary being kind of almost like a carnival barker when it came to promoting D&D. And we have plenty of other stuff. A lot of folks are hungry to see more of your art than just what hangs behind me here. But did you get the sense back then, as a dewy-eyed adolescent, fresh-faced and facing the America of the mid 1970s? Did you get the sense that like this phenomena was just barreling down the hill at that point? Or it was like, oh, okay, pretend to be a hobbit. That's kind of fun, and just kind of move on.
it, it was more like a intrigue because Gary had me over to his house, and
Hmm.
I went down into the infamous basement.
The basement.
Yep. And I think I told you this before. At the time, I was more marveling at the all the wonderful shoe cobbling gear and tools that he had in his basement, looking at each one, going, "Oh, what does that do? What's that for? What's that
So,
for?"
so here's Gary on one half of the basement with the sand table. I mean, if you give the man 2 seconds while you catch your breath, Paul Stormberg will school you on every bit of gaming gear that was in Gary's house. And I mean that in the best possible way because Paul is awesome. But here you are like, oh, wow, a shoe last. Oh, this, you put aglets on with this, you say? That's great. That is great. Um, but at the time, it didn't feel like that sense of cultural phenomena, that's tectonic change in. And I hate to sound like I'm overstating, but I don't think you would disagree with this. How we interact with each other, that initial sense wasn't like you didn't think like, oh my God, I get to be part of Dungeons and Dragons. It was like, oh my God, I get to get paid for art.
I didn't even know about pay at that point. But
So drop the pay
um,
part is just, oh my God, I get to art.
yeah, 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 yeah. Well, the fact that he liked what he had seen, and
Mhm.
here I am talking to this adult guy, and uh, just not not knowing anything that was happening next with the art or anything else, because it's like at that point, um, he he gave me like a copy of Chainmail,
Mhm.
uh, with a silver metallic cover,
Yeah.
and and the one of the first box sets with the faux wood.
Wow.
Yeah,
Every,
and
every conversation you and I have about playing D&D from the outset, or working with Gary from the outset, every time you come to the wood grain set, I get goosebumps. I mean, sure, back then it was probably, oh, again, that's interesting. But nowadays it's like, yeah, so he handed me an original copy of the Constitution, and
yeah. So and it had that new, it had what I call like that new printer smell. Like, you know how you get into a car
wow,
with a
yeah,
brand new car and you get you just with the box. It's like you opened it up and it smelled like it just like came fresh from the printers. I can't even explain it. You had that sort of
yeah,
chemically smell to it, and
yeah. Printer's ink, the adhesive of holding the shelf paper onto the box. Yeah, yeah, that smell. I think we all. Um, I don't think you can call yourself like a reading fanatic, a lover of the printed word, if you don't enjoy the smell of a new book.
true, 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 true. Yeah, I would agree with that. And it, I kind of had the same thing, holding this box and opening it up, and here's the booklets inside, and he says to me, he's like, well, take this stuff home, look it over, look through the books, and tell me what you think. And he's like, I may have you do something like um, related to this. So I
Okay.
was like, sure, and we just kind of went from there.
Wow. And so, you went on to make, uh, and this is one of those things that, like, you mind flayer. Now, I don't think there's anybody in our audience, even if they haven't seen you on streams before. I mean, that is, you know, the mind flayer is like the iconic D&D bad guy, and thanks in no small part to Stranger Things. I mean, with the Mind Flayer and Demogorgon, right, from
Hmm.
Stranger Things. But I mean, when you see that, like, in a Funko Pop and the new Baldur's Gate game, I guess the bad guys are all supposed to be Mind Flayers, and this, that, and the other. That's got to be a surge of emotion for you, because that's your squid-headed brain-eating baby, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool because there was like a period in my life where um, the D&D part of it like sort of just faded away.
Hmm.
It went into the background and then it sort of faded out, and I hadn't really thought about it much. And then here comes this cultural resurgence, like a wave, and all of a sudden all of this stuff is like really hip and cool and relevant, and uh, you know, the next thing I know, people are contacting me and what part of the history did you play, etc. And resulting in things like the Art and Arcana book
Hmm.
from 10 Speed Press, um, and even the module you and I worked on together, which was phenomenal. The Lost Crypt from Frog God Games. Um, but yeah, yeah, it's amazing and exciting, and I hope it continues. I hope the gaming love just keeps on growing and doesn't like fizzle out like a fad, to where you're just left with the hardcore people who have been enjoying this their entire lives, compared to maybe somebody that would be considered more of a bandwagoner, for lack of a
Yeah.
better term.
I you know and a lot of valued guests know that I've gone off on a rant before about bandwagoners and game tourists, and so on and etc. But honestly, I mean, look, if Wizards of the Coast lifestyles the hell out of D&D, but they keep the history, they keep the roots alive, and people know the awesome stuff that you and others eked out of those, you know, mimeographed pages there in Lake Geneva in the 1970s, then so be it. If the love of the game grows in that direction, but the roots stay strong, I say bring it on. So uh barring any questions anyone out there in the audience may want to ask, and I do have my eye on the chat, so if y'all are curious, just don't be afraid. He's an approachable guy. All right, I
God, I
promise.
hope
You
so.
you you can ask him. He's uh, but so you did, as you say, so much iconic early D&D art, and then you got Boot Hill, which you worked on with your father,
Yeah.
which had to have been just a huge thing. All I ever did with my dad was hang drywall. I mean, and the funny thing was, one of the biggest projects I ever did with my dad. I thought about this a few years ago. It was way down south of Orlando, a town called Kissimmee, the most improbable of names. But you originally hail from Wisconsin. Weird place names doesn't that
No.
Kissimmee. Oh yeah. So what? I live near Waukesha, so that's a joke between my wife and I. I know it's Waukesha, but anyway, yeah, I once spent an entire summer hanging drywall in this place, and it was a huge project and so on. And uh, it took the entire summer. I made my first real paychecks. Like I was on Dad's payroll, and Dad gave me a check. And uh, it's been a long time ago, but my wife and I were driving through that area many years ago, and that mall that we worked on was in the process of being demolished. Not like remodeled. I mean, just bulldozed, knocked down, paved over.
Wow.
Um, but you got to make something that lasted with your dad. I mean, sitting down and doing Boot Hill, the original Boot Hill, that must have been quite a thrill, because as you've said, your dad was a fan of Zane Grey and Louis L'Amour and Max Brand and so
Oh
on,
yes.
the spaghetti westerns and the classic
Oh yeah.
westerns. So yeah, I mean that might have been a rush. Now, the one question, and I wanted to ask you this because we have plenty of time. We're not racing. Um, so we're absolutely going to talk about your other projects. So um when you told Gary or whoever at TSR, uh, yes, obviously you're going to work on Boot Hill. Did you say, I'm bringing my dad in? My dad's going to help me work on this? Were they enthused by that, or was it just like, here's the art, my dad helped me do this?
It was like in the process of doing the art, I had mentioned that dad was helping me, um, because of his love of westerns and stuff. And at that point, I believe they had asked it, well, would he be interested in doing a piece for the book? And so I asked him, and he said yes. And he came up with a barroom scene where two guys are at a card table,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them has a smoking gun, and the other is slumped over the end of the table. And it's a wonderful drawing. Um, I think I have it. I think I have it in the PDF. Uh, Maybe I can grab that for next time and just show that particular picture. Because my dad was a professional artist at one point, and I just I got the benefit from him being over my shoulder all the time. And with Boot Hill, um, it's like he could have like overridden what I was doing. Like, hey, no, 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 you gotta draw it like this, and this has got to go here. Um, Other than just keeping me thinking about proportions and the fundamentals, he didn't try to stage it for me or anything, or tell me how I should pose the people in the drawing or whatever. He just kind of let me have my lead, and on certain details, he'd step in, but for the most part, he just let me go for it.
And yeah, I just happen to have a nice photo of the cover of Boot Hill there that I'm sharing with our audience.
Awesome.
Tracy C. Lesch, 1975, a
Holy cow.
gunfight at sunset there on the streets of Laredo.
Boot Hill's off in the background.
Yes, with Boot Hill off in the background. A wonderful piece.
Oh, thanks.
So yeah, that is what as you guys will hear on the second anniversary episode. One of Gary's best stories about gaming, it has to do with Boot Hill, but I'll I'll just tease that out there, and you guys will find that out on the anniversary episode coming up, not this weekend, but next weekend. But anyway, so UNTSR, obviously, all good journeys must eventually meet their end. So you went on to do other stuff, though. You didn't just put down your pen because you weren't drawing brain sucking horrors from the Eldritch Deeps, or gritty cowboys getting ready to sling lead. You kept on drawing and writing and creating. So what was over the next ridge for Tracy Lesch?
Well, I got some professional training under my belt. Went to college at University of Stout and University of Whitewater in Wisconsin, and taking illustration and so forth. Uh, just kind of like learn new things, sharpen my skills. Um, and for a while, uh, there was sort of a gap where I wasn't really doing anything art wise, and I started focusing more on just like making bread, because sometimes being a starving artist is no fun. Um,
Yes.
so I kind of, I went to work for more like industrial type places doing drafting.
Hmm.
Uh, Something I was really good at. I ended up like programming the 3D drafting systems that we were using on the job, and so on. So I learned a lot there. But art and such kind of went by the wayside. And then let's see, how did I get back in there? So um, I took a contract job in Florida to do drafting for a company called E1. They were the
Okay.
largest manufacturer of emergency vehicles that went all over the world.
Okay.
So I was working for them, and the contract came up, and they said, we can't keep you. Sorry,
Mm.
we can't keep you. So I was like, oh well, what am I going to do next? So um, I took a job with a t-shirt place, and this guy like handled all the theme park shirts and sports and just all kinds of stuff. He had a really busy big shop. So I went to work for him as an artist, doing designs for shirts and separations and so on and so forth for his screen printing outfit. And one day he tells me, "Hey, I do stuff for Planet Hollywood, and uh, they want you to work in their offices because they had the computer equipment that he didn't have,
Okay.
like top of the line Mac stuff." And so I started going over to their corporate offices and working. And actually, so as I'm in their offices, I'm also working on designs for their T-shirts on using a Mac that they had. Well, at one point, they approached me and they said, "Hey, would you have a problem just coming to work directly for us?" And they hired me away from my other boss, but he was okay with it because they were all good friends. That's why they were all working together. And
Sure.
he's like, "No, if Tracy wants to do that, I got no problem with it. I'm not gonna stand in his way." So I went to work for Planet Hollywood Corporate as their merchandise artist, and started like working on all Planet Hollywood branded merch. And
Mhm.
then we moved into Marvel. And if I can come back to that story, I just want to step away for a minute. I'll come right back. Would that be okay
Oh,
with you
sure.
guys?
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. You do you. Got a question for you when you get back from the audience too. So
Yeah, I'll
go
be
do
I'll
what
be
you need to
back.
do. All right. So while Tracy's stepping away, I just want to take a quick moment to mention we are at 972 subs on the channel now. 972. And if you like this kind of stuff, having TSR alums on the show, and you want to see more of it, please, by all means, subscribe to the channel. Click the bell icon for notifications about upcoming shows if you haven't already. And if you have friends that would love this kind of thing, have them subscribe to the channel, because when we hit 1,000 subs, which is going to happen real soon, guys, it's going to happen. We're going to celebrate with a virtual gaming convention, the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention. I'm going to be running some classic Dungeons and Dragons, some Twilight 2000, might be too timely by half on that one. Some Gamma World, which hopefully won't prove to be timely at all. Um, just a raft of classic games in a virtual tabletop gaming settings, and other people will be running stuff too. My co-host Kyle Schuant will be running some tabletop gaming, as will others that have volunteered. Paul Stormberg will be here. So help us get to 1,000 subs. If you're just stopping by and you haven't subscribed, please subscribe, click the bell notification, leave some comments, and we'll get there. Hey, there he is. He's back. Tracy Lesch back with us, folks.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
I still
So,
have medical issues, so
no,
thank you, thank you all for bearing with me.
we completely understand. So, question from Tonka Todd: how did you come up with the very creepy and ultra cool image of the Mind Flayer?
Oh, okay. Well, Gary gave me some basic direction, and I kind of had to take it and run with it because he didn't really get too detailed. It was sort of a general, these folks are going to be the Mind Flayer is going to be like the epitome of evil, and they're going to have this psionic power. And I was like, well, what is that? And he's like, well, it's mental powers. And I was like, oh, you mean like Professor X from the X-Men and Marvel Comics? And he was like, yeah, they're going to be able to control people and so on. And the the basic direction was that this character needed to have a head like a squid, and it would have 4 tentacles around its mouth. And so I was like, okay, So I thought about that, and I sort of liked the look of some of the other things I had seen already, like wizards in their robes and stuff like that. So I was like, well, I think the character's got to be robed. So my inspiration was Ming the Merciless from Flash Gordon.
Nice.
With the the robes and the high collar and so on and so forth. And then so then I took that and I decided, well, I want to trim it out in sort of mystical symbols, which you'll notice are like going around the cuffs and the bottom of the Mind Flayer's robe. And so it was like, okay, squid head, check. Evil, check. Psionic ability, check. I put some like little waves coming out from his head, so you could see that he was like projecting his thought waves or whatever. And that was it. And of course, there's been discussion that Gary was influenced by Cthulhu and wanted to do something along those lines. And I had not read any Lovecraft at that point, being 14, not doing a lot of reading, doing a lot of more screwing around and chasing girls and stuff like that.
Of course.
Yeah. So, but once he saw it, it was really gratifying to see how pleased that he was with it.
Nice.
Along with the roper, because he kind of threw those at me at the same time and wanted me. So when I presented them, I gave them both at the same time and said, "Here they are." And he said, "You have set the look for these 2 characters." He says, I don't change anything. I love it. And
that's great. That's
the rest is history. So, I guess I must have hit on what he was thinking about.
Well, I think you kind of lucked out in that respect. There's a very funny story that Larry Elmore told about doing the cover of the version of Basic Dungeons and Dragons that would be edited by Frank Mentzer. It's the warrior fighting the dragon, and he did the cover, and there was a whole group of adventurers. He thought, it's D&D, it's a group thing, and here's a dwarf and an elf, and so sent the art in, and it came back with just no written on it. And he said, "No, what do you mean no?" And so he changed the composite, moved figures around a little bit, changed the composition some, and sent it back. And it came back with no underline and an exclamation point. And finally, you had to go down to Gary's office. And so, what do you mean no? Oh, no, I just mean just one adventurer. Oh, okay. So there's not a party, just one. So, he had to go to the man himself.
Oh, that's great.
But so you were saying, so you're out at Planet Hollywood now. You're down in Florida. Is this the point of Planet Hollywood's ascension? I'm guessing because it was right around 2000, 2001, of course, and tragic events caused an economic collapse, precipitated that, and a lot of the entertainment type places, because it's like everyone was doing it. There was a monster truck themed entertainment restaurant out on iDrive. A couple of country music stars had them out there, but the granddaddy was Planet Hollywood. So they were still coming up in the world at this time, yeah?
Well, we also had opened our 80th location around the world.
Wow.
We were opening the All-Star Cafe, which was the sports themed restaurant with all athletes as backers. And then we were moving towards coming up with a deal with Marvel. So, we also had trying trying to think of the other ones we had. We had Cafe Tutu Tango that was under our roof.
I remember Cafe Tutu Tango.
Yeah,
Yeah, quite
and
quite the
also
spot.
yes, I think it's still there.
Yeah, as
I
far as I
think the
know.
menu's changed quite radically, but there was also a cowboy themed steakhouse called Wild Jack's, and that had like three
Mhm.
locations. That was under our umbrella as well. So yeah, um, this was like before the thing, everything crashed and they had declared bankruptcy. But yeah, we were like at that high point, and I was doing shirt art for like every conceivable country, and we had people there, we had teams there that I consulted with, and it was a kind of a heady time. It was like,
Certainly.
you know, it was sort of definitely a big shot role for me, which it was like really enjoyable, and I loved my work, and I loved creating this stuff every day. And so finally, we get Marvel on board. They want to do a restaurant as well, a comic book themed restaurant. So we were focusing on there were going to be three initial locations. It was going to be Hollywood, Orlando, and trying to think where we're going to put the
I would
third
guess
one.
Chicago and New York, or Chicago or New York would be.
Was it? Yeah, it was New York,
Okay.
definitely. Yeah, so that was going to be the plan, and but it was funny because the thing that was holding things up the most was getting the branding right. Um, they had gone to umpteen cajillion companies and agencies and freelancers to get a logo that they liked, and they're throwing all this stuff out, and so I came up with the logo as I envisioned it, and that was the one. So that became the main branding, and if you look at my Facebook page, there's a picture of the Hollywood location of Marvel Mania, which was the themed restaurant, which was pretty
Hmm.
cool. I mean, they had like suits of Iron Man armor inside, and glass
Wow.
tubes, and all sorts of just everything you can think of. Sound effects were all over, you know, taken from the comic books and like blown up huge with like,
Right. Right.
but it was a lot of fun. So yeah, so I got to work with the Marvel folks, and so it went from doing the logo to um, the actual merchandising. So I actually got to throw in a bunch of ideas for stuff to sell in the stores, and designed a lot of shirts. And because we had to, I was going to get some of that art and for us to show,
Okay.
but we had to change our schedule, so I didn't have time to gather that together. So what I'll do
Oh,
is
I'm sorry. That's on me, folks.
that's a, if I if you'll have me back, we can do like a
Well, sure.
strictly strictly
Just as
Marvel
planned.
art.
Yes. Yes.
And that way I can scan in a bunch of that stuff and have the images ready to go. So yeah,
Right
so
on.
designing shirts and menus, and uh, Bill was over at my place when I unveiled the book, The Marvel Vault.
Yeah, that's right. Just January, I think, just after Christmas.
Yep. And
Yep.
one of the things in that Marvel Vault is an actual menu from one of the Marvel Mania locations, and that was awesome. I did not know that was in there until we turned the pages, and there it was in the plastic. But
That's great,
yeah,
man.
and there was the Marvel Mania logo, which featured like all the heroes, and then there was the Marvel Mania logo that was just Spider-Man tailored, using his webbing and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so I've like designed plates for the restaurant, just anything you can think of, and I still have some of that stuff tucked away. I've got like a couple of shirts.
Well, we absolutely want to see that. That's a must have for your next appearance.
And I got a painting from Stan Lee.
Oh, I was coming. That's literally my next question. So you actually, Ever the artist, got art out of this experience. Tell us about the painting that you got.
So I'm in my office, and some folks come and they're dragging this like crated structure into my office, and I'm like, well, what's this? And they're like, oh, well, we don't know. We just know that it came from Stan Lee's office. And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, it's for you apparently. And it was the painting. It was like all crated up so it would be safe. It's a big, colorful gouache painting of Spider-Man, and some of his enemies attacking him in the background,
Wow.
and it's huge. If you remind me, I'll take a picture of it. It's hanging on my living room wall,
Yes,
and
I recall staring at that for more than a few minutes. That is.
at the back of it. So on the back of the canvas, it's signed by the artist that did it. He slips my mind right now. Sorry. And Stan Lee signed it too. And I got like just a nice little note, saying, hey, love what you've done with the Marvel Mania logo, etc. And thanks for working on it, Stan Lee. I was like, wow.
That's great. That's great. You kept the letter, right? You got the letter as well, tucked away somewhere.
Yeah, I got it somewhere.
Oh, good. That is
having a little cocktail here.
No, that's fine. What are you drinking? I'm just having some water myself. How about you?
Okay, well, today we got Yellow Rose.
Yellow
whiskey.
Rose. Let's that's better. Yeah. There we go. Yellow Rose whiskey.
From
Premium
Texas.
American. Well, of course it's from Texas. I gotta one of these nights, like I just gotta have a round table with some folks and see if I can get you and my sometime guest Ty Beard on. Get you guys talking about whiskeys. Ty, of course, war games designer. He's an attorney out in Texas, but he is a war gamer and a consumer of all cool D&D things as well. So might have to do that and have you guys talk about. I'm such a noob, right? Like if it's not a little bit of Jack Daniels and a whole lot of Coca-Cola or Bailey's, hard liquor and me just don't. I haven't even like the foggiest idea how to approach it. But beers, and don't get me talking about beers. I will talk your ear off about beers. So
no, that's great. Beers are good too.
Beers are delicious, but like I said, I'm just drinking a little H2O tonight. A little hydration there.
Hydration's good.
So art-wise, what Corian says, vodka and sugar-free Red Bull over here. Yow. That's a good way to stop your heart, dude.
Yeah.
You'll cause all those valves to seize. But anyway, so here's the question for you. Question from me. During those days, when you had moved on and you were still doing art stuff, and you mentioned CAD programming and so on, did anyone at that point ever Like, obviously, it's on your resume. I mean, something like helped create Dungeons and Dragons is something you put on your resume. I don't care what they say about, like, well, if it's been more than 5 years, don't put it on your resume. I'm sorry. If it was me, I don't care that it happened in 1974. I would put on my resume, helped create Dungeons and Dragons. I would just do that. But was there anybody at these places who knew you from not having met you, but said, "Oh, Tracy Lesch, I played Dungeons and Dragons. I played OD&D." Um, ever any name recognition back then? Uh-oh, we lost your audio. Hang on a second, Tracy. Yeah, we've lost your mic. Go again?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We just your mic cut out there.
You got really quiet.
Must have been a hiccup on StreamYard side, because we can hear you now. So go ahead. Go ahead, Trace.
Oh, I'm just playing with the control here.
Okay. So I say, was there anyone when you were coming up and doing like the stuff with Planet Hollywood and all, who recognized your work from back in the TSR days, be it Boot Hill or D&D?
No, only if I had mentioned casually, oh yeah, I did some stuff with D&D,
Mm,
then they'd be like, oh yeah, they know D&D, they
right.
just didn't know me. So
Right. And, I think that's one of the awesome things about the Art and Arcana set, because I mean, you and I met because of my curiosity. I mean, every kid that says, "Oh yeah, I played D&D all the way back at the start," that's my age, means they started playing AD&D, or they started with basic D&D. It's very thin on the ground, the number of people my age who started D&D at the beginning, who mean the set, the wood grain or white box set and the supplements, right?
right,
So when we talk about, we know D&D artists, we're talking about Dave Trampier, uh, Errol Otis, Larry Elmore, and so on. And the beauty of the Art and Arcana set wasn't just, its luxurious pages, but letting us know about a whole field of artists, yourself included, who
sure,
really, yeah, all of you put your blood, sweat, and tears into making D&D great. Because let's be completely honest. If Gary had just said, no, these are just rules, we'll have a flashy cover page, and then we'll get into the meat of it, and then it's just tables and paragraphs and so on, with nothing to fire the imagination, I don't think D&D would have been anything near what it was, or any other war game that TSR worked on. So he recognized early on that it had to have a look, and being able, just taking a 1 in a million shot over social media and reaching out to you was such a thrill for me, and I'm glad I did, and I'm glad we got to know each other for
yeah, for
sure.
sure.
Um, but yeah, so there was that, as you say, there's a period when, unless you said, yes, I worked on Dungeons and Dragons, it was just, Tracy's the guy in our graphic design department.
Pretty much,
Yeah, yeah.
pretty much.
So art wise, what are you doing? What are you doing these days? I know you're doing your main gig right now is a technical support thing, which I'm guessing you don't want to talk too much about doing your tech support gig. You can
No,
if you want.
that's boring. I'm very
Uh,
good at what I do, but No, it's not interesting.
Yeah, no, I I'm very much the same way as people like, I'm a writer who occasionally has to go do IT stuff at this point in my life, right? And I don't write about I don't write about it. No two-fisted tales of swapping a new memory stick into a malfunctioning Dell Optiplex, nothing like that. So I completely get that. But have you got anything I guess, have you got anything planned? Are you working on a piece or a series of pieces, or are you out there pounding the virtual pavement to do more art commercially?
Well, the second, all the time, all the time. Like to definitely do more fantasy art, of course.
Mhm.
Um, as far as like new stuff, well, I've got some things on the table because I want to have it ready for QuestCon,
Mhm.
which you and I are both going to be at.
That's right. You and I are both going to be at QuestCon this. I think it's August 22nd. Does that
I think it's
sound?
it's on a Saturday. I think it's the 20th.
Yeah, something like that. 20th to 22nd. That's here in Orlando, by the way, in the Central Florida area. So if you happen to be in Florida in August, God have mercy on you. But if you do happen to be in Florida in August, you have your full NASA hard suit with built-in environmental controls. Um, the weekend, we have computers and calendars and everything. I can pull this up here. So let's have a gander. So yes, that would be, I guess, the 19th through the 21st, QuestCon, unless they start on the Thursday, in which case it would be the 18th through the 21st. A lot of conventions do that. They'll have a soft launch on the Thursday, and then the big stuff happens Friday and Saturday. But Tracy and I will be there. But let's talk about you being there. What are you going to be doing at QuestCon?
Well, I'm going to have a table there, and
Okay.
I'll have a bunch of prints for sale, and just meeting people, um, signing stuff, and just kicking it. You know.
Excellent.
So I'm trying to prepare two color pieces in anticipation of that, um, and they're both going to be painted. So I'm kind of like doing all the preliminary work on that and trying to get those sketched up so I can proceed to the next step. But yeah, I want to have two nice big color pieces for that convention and have those available for folks as well.
Right on. Right on. Now, when you say color pieces, what is your medium? Are you talking about digital, or you watercolor, or oils, or what?
These will be watercolor,
Okay.
much like the one behind you.
Yes,
That was
which my shifting around and rearranging. I'm not disrespecting it, by parking my giant potato head in front of it constantly. It's just, I move things around and I'm never really aware until I'm sitting, and I don't want to fidget too much. But you guys really should take a look if you haven't seen that behind me before. If you're new, if you're newish to the channel and you've only ever seen the non-potato head in the way, that is a painting by Tracy. Now, no, look, collectors, don't at me. It's not the painting. First of all, even if it was the painting, I wouldn't part with it. But it's not the painting. So the original is safe in Tracy's possession, unfortunately. But no, they gifted me with a lovely canvas print, and that is watercolor. Um, Now you did that piece for TSR, but the Fools didn't use it in anything. Was that the story on that one?
yeah, it was. I did a whole bunch of stuff just like as sort of a test to show them that I could like do color pieces as well.
Mm.
Um, And so like I did a number of them, and I kind of had forgotten about them until I found like a portfolio in a bunch of stuff in my garage, and so that piece was in it along with the other ones from
Hmm.
around 77 or 79, I think they were.
Hmm.
And so to preserve them, I went and had like scans done and all that good
Wise
stuff.
move.
Yeah,
Wise move.
but I still
Now,
have the original.
good, good. I know that like your actual, like the pieces that got published by TSR, those went into TSR's vaults, and I think if they kept them and held on to them, they're locked away somewhere. I can almost guarantee that.
Right.
Um, but now I'm going to scold Tonka Todd, not because he has a question, but because he said, "Last question, I promise. I don't want to bug you." Todd, this is a talk show, dude. This is a talk show with audience participation. I'm only upset if that is your last question because we like questions and the guests like
Yeah,
questions.
definitely.
So Todd's question is, are you currently playing? Oh, this is an interesting one, very du jour. Are you currently playing any tabletop role playing games? If so, what character are you playing?
Ah, would I count our Monday night escapades?
I think that, yeah, definitely for sure.
Okay, I'm playing a thief. Uh, I think he's like seventh level right now,
I think so.
um, and I've named him Kane. And he's had some pretty great adventures so far. And I did two pieces of artwork based on this thief character and things that had actually happened in Bill's game. Uh, I could probably show those.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
definitely. We want to
yeah,
see some Kane the Thief pieces.
but yeah, definitely playing first edition with Bill, and when I get the chance, jump into a Gamma World game. I want to experiment with some new stuff as well. I haven't like really spread myself out as far as gaming goes, but yeah, classic D&D. That's kind of my jam.
Well, I'm glad I was able to hook you into that. It's a lot of fun to have you at the table, and I mean, you know, I've
It's a lot of
held
fun.
I've held court a lot on my feelings on, ooh, let's get a celebrity on here kind of thing on the games. I would rather have people who are genuinely interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons and not promoting a brand of themselves at the table.
Right.
Um, if your first reaction when you sit down at the table is, does my hair look good? Let me get this on Insta, click, and done. Hashtag D&D, hashtag Total Geek, hashtag gaming. You know, don't.
I don't play well enough to be a celebrity.
Neither do I. um, but now here's a broader question we got from Damien, and this is a real good one from Damien. How do you deal with being in an artistic rut? Been sketching to avoid getting rusty, but haven't been inspired for a bit. That's the kind of question that really gets the old noggin jogging. Tracy.
That's easy. Movies, and more movies. Um, I'll just go and binge watch, a bunch of stuff because usually it's fantasy, sci-fi, adventure, um, good action movies. A lot of times too, I'll sketch and I'll put on a soundtrack in the
Mm-hmm.
background. I've got a collection of soundtracks from different movies that I've loved. Everything from Howard Shore's Lord of the Rings music
Ooh, good
to
call.
things like the soundtrack from Peter Jackson's King Kong, the soundtrack of uh, John Williams' Superman themes, Star Wars music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, soundtrack from The Illusionist. I even have like a Dark Shadows 50th anniversary um, a CD that's got like all the musical cues that were in the show. So that's interesting because they're like really creepy. And
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to do that sort of work, it's actually really inspirational to like put that music on, and you're hearing all the foreboding, and then from there it's not too hard to start coming up with an idea. Uh, the one thing I'll do too is if I'm just at a total loss, is just do very loose sketching with really no set specific thing that you're trying to create, but just trying to come up with something in the movement of the lines or the shapes or something that just kind of hits you right. And then from there, you'll grab that and you'll flesh it out more, or you may go to a clean, a clean pad and like just take that and do like a more detailed version on another pad. But just like, picking up a pad and just loosely sketching. It doesn't have to be anything, and just see what pops out of that. So I would say those are the three things I do to stay inspired and excited about what I'm doing. Um, like watching the movies, listening to soundtracks, and just kind of free. What do they call that? Like free thinking, free floating. Um, I don't know the word for it. Mind mapping, almost. Sketching.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And I mean,
Honestly, it's not the whiskey. I swear to God.
no, that's fine. I mean, I don't look, I'm not humble bragging. I'm not fishing for compliments. So don't start some cascade. Oh no, Bill, you're awesome. Um, I don't consider miniature painting anywhere near on the same level of doing what you or anyone else who works in a visual medium does. But to add to what you are saying and putting on stuff in the background, um, like one of the reasons I don't do miniature painting streams anymore is I'm to the point now where I got to have something on in the background. I have a mini painting playlist on YouTube that I put together. And it's stuff that like I may never stop to listen to normally, just like, yeah, I want to hear Fleetwood Mac and then some Beethoven and then some Steely Dan. I would never want to hear it in that order, but God, it works great for mini painting. And of course, if I play that music and live stream, YouTube will park the Death Star over my house and fire the main laser battery at me for doing that. Um, but I'm very much the same way. If I find myself in need of painting miniatures, which I wish that bug would bite me a little bit more often. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'll put on my favorite movie to have on for just background noise is probably Big Trouble in Little China, which you'd think a movie like that would demand your whole attention for working in a visual medium, but I can sit there and I'm painting a miniature and I'll feel my mouth just repeating all the words on screen. Shut up, Mr. Burton. You're not brought on this earth to get it. As I'm painting away. So to reiterate what Tracy's saying, that can be a real help in getting the creative juices flowing, is having good music or good movie on just in the background, just as the equivalent of when you got gas in your gas tank and you got oil and your engine's not seized up, but it won't get going. Well, you get a little brake cleaner and you shoot it down the carb and it causes it to fire off and start the fuel pump. It can be a little brake cleaner down the carb to
Yep.
have some good music or good movie on. And you might start with the idea of I'm just going to listen to music or I'm just going to watch a movie, and then you're like, oh my god, I have 100 orcs to paint. you know Let's see. Oh, a question from another question from Tonka Todd. See, you
Holy
ask other
cow.
questions. You ask other questions. Stream of
Awesome.
consciousness, I think, is was what
There
you're
you
going
go.
for, Laura? Stream
Yeah,
of
stream of
consciousness.
consciousness.
Damien says it's
Perfect.
it's all in the reflexes. Yes. So Tonka Todd asks us, are there any other cons you have plans on visiting? Thank you for the Mind Flayer. It's my all-time favorite monster. Only because you haven't been properly DM'd against it, Todd. But the con question, I'll send over to Tracy. You can answer that one, Trace. Any cons coming up other than this? People have been after me saying, Bill, when are you going back to Gary Con? And I'm like, random stranger, when I can scrape together $4,000 to go do it, you know.
Right.
But how
Well,
about you? What
well, I did Gary Con before the Andromeda strain. So
good use of the term.
if they were to invite me back, I would definitely attend again. It was great, and actually had them auction off some of my original artwork to benefit Wounded Warrior Project, and I guess
great.
they did very well. So I was very happy with that. It was a great experience. I'd love to do more cons, but it's like I I could not like call somebody or write somebody and say, yeah, you need to have me at your con, man. It's like now if somebody from a convention were to get in touch with me and approach me and say, would you be interested in this, or could we have you at the convention? Yeah, I mean, I'll um, definitely probably go with that possibility.
Well, no, a lot of people have jokingly accused me of being one, but I'm no influencer. But it's just my opinion, and I don't say this just because we're friends. Because there's a lot of people I've had on the show who I like and who like me, but I wouldn't be so bold as to say, we're friends. But I would say the same thing about them. Honestly, your phone ought to be ringing off the hook. Look, Luke, Gygax, if you're watching this, you catch wind of this, you ought to be flying Tracy up there every damn convention you have. That's just my opinion.
Wow, thank you.
Just well, no, thank you. I mean, look, I get it. It's not Comic-Con level big as far as budget and accommodations, but really, I mean, you know, people need to understand the roots of D&D, okay? That it's not all lifestyle branding, okay? It's not all you know, 18 different people in a team of 4 sensitivity readers creating D&D. It was very much garage band level work, and yourself and quite frankly way too many artists who passed away before they got their just desserts in terms of fan support, worked on this stuff, and I think we as fans deserve to see you and the other guys exalted. You should be being invited to GaryCon and NTRPG and what have you pretty much constantly, but that's just the opinion of one person. So
Right. Well, I'm always open, and I love meeting people, and it was a great experience at Gary Con. It was like the first real con I had done since working with TSR, so it was a lot of fun, and it was nice that people wanted to see me and talk with me, and you know,
oh my gosh, I mean, I'm lucky I get you to
get things
myself,
signed, and
but it's I think it's absolutely a thrill. And to the audience, look, even if you only get to go once or you only want to do it once, do go to GaryCon. Go while it's small, okay? Don't be looking back at GaryCon 28 where, you know, there's 25,000 people going and they have to have
Right.
it in downtown Milwaukee, and you can't meet anybody, and you got to wait 6 hours to get a sugar covered pretzel, and then pay $22 for the privilege and say, I wish I could have been there when. All right.
Yeah.
We're right at that cusp. Okay. When you may end up looking back like that. So you get a chance to go to Gary Con and to meet Tracy and some of the other great artists. Do it. Do it.
I'd love to meet anybody, talk with them. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Gary Con was great. Um, so as far as the mind flayer, you're welcome. I guess, because not everyone has that reaction. Like, oh, thank you for the mind flayer. I met one guy in a parking lot at a grocery store, and my wife blurted out to him because he made known he was a D&D player. She blurts out to him, yeah, and my husband made the mind flayer, and without missing a beat, this guy looked at me and he said, I hate you.
You know, depending on who you talk to, that might be like confessing, yeah, I gave Gary the idea for the sphere of annihilation, and like it just socked in the nose. We thought that damn thing in Tomb of Horrors was a magic portal.
Yeah, I mean, Tomb of Horrors was bad enough.
Yeah. And that's, oh, by the way, kids, fans of the show who don't know this, this guy over here is the original illustrator Tomb of Horrors. Now, some people like ask me this, and I want to clear the air on something. Speaking just for myself, like they try to be sly and they ask me on the side, like, look, I know the Tomb of Horrors art that, you know, was published was great, but I mean, you really prefer Tracy's stuff. Look, it's not a matter of prefer. All right. Errol stuff in there, and yes, he did do the color cover of the back of the full color release of the module. Dave Trampier's, Dave Sutherland's, and Dave LaForce's stuff in Tomb of Horrors is gorgeous. Tracy's work in the folio version of Tomb of Horrors, which yes, you can get with the deluxe set of Art and Arcana, is also gorgeous. So don't come at me with, yeah, but which one do you prefer? You know, because I'm like, yes. So any characters lost to Tomb of Horrors, like the Mind Flayer, are also in part because of Tracy. And that story, I
so
think,
much pain.
that story, I know, you know, we've talked about your post TSR years, and you know, we were kind of focusing on that, but to jump back a little bit, yeah, you pretty much, what was it, 28 illustrations in 10 days or something insane like that?
It was like a month, like a month.
Yeah, so you basically had to knock out a full page pen and ink drawing every day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so
it was a marathon, but it, you know, it had to be so that it could be taken to Origins.
Yeah. So there's a good excuse. I mean, if you're like, well, you know, it's $70 or it's $90 or it's $100 for the ultimate set, dudes, you're getting Tomb of Horrors, the original folio edition, illustrated by our guest, and also Alan Lucian's Tomb of Rahotep, which is not illustrated by anyone. It's Alan's hand-drawn maps and Gary's typed pages. Or no, not typed, handwritten. Yeah, the Rahotep notes are Gary's longhand. But Tonka Todd asks, is there a place where you keep your D&D art online so that we could share along social media?
Not as yet. It doesn't mean that there won't be. But yeah. I can. I posted some on Facebook from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
But other than sharing them on the show here. Haven't really. I have some things in a digital portfolio at coralflot.com, but it's not exclusively D&D stuff. It's like a smattering of all sorts of different projects that I've worked on. It's sort of a just a digital resume out there. But
Right.
I'm hoping to put together a website soon. What soon looks like, I'm not sure, but I appreciate the question for sure.
Oh, I'm sure we would all love to see that. Now, uh, being a guy who dabbles in sort of bending copyright into a U shape sometimes, not stealing from artists, I mean stealing from corporations. I ask you this: could you? Is it permitted? Are you allowed? Do you have enough rights to your own stuff that if you wanted to say publish a book, the complete Tracy Lesch, an illustrated folio or something like that, that took the pieces that were featured in Dungeons and Dragons and that were featured in Art and Arcana, in addition to stuff like your Paladin novel cover, which by the way, Tracy wrote a book. I don't want to let that go past. Tracy wrote a book. All that basically as near complete a folio of your work as you could muster. Could you do that, or would that step on the IP toes of other publishers?
Um, you know, probably with some of the D&D stuff, I don't know what the legalities are as far as that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but my original stuff that was unpublished, that's all mine. That's free and clear, so I could use any of that
So
for
like
sure.
Prince of the guy fighting the snake, that's free
Yes,
and clear. Okay,
yes, yeah, that's all mine.
right on, right on. Um, well, for, not to stray too far down this road because I don't simply don't want to unless you do. D&D is in a weird place, and it has been for like the last 22 years, because on the one hand, Wizards of the Coast seems very like, so uh Machiavelli's The Prince, he talks about deposing, basically you put in a position a really horrible leader, you appoint a governor, someone to govern a province or a country, and you say, look, just move without let or hindrance, just take the people for all they have, I want nothing but profit. Wait a year or two until the province is up in arms. Go and listen to the people, act shocked, act appalled, act as though you had no idea this was going on, and then remove that person, preferably turn him over for some tribunal and have him done away with if it was someone you didn't like. And then you don't have to do a 180. You just have to be a little bit nicer than he was. Just a little bit, just give back a couple of things, and people will praise you as the savior of their people, wise and good. um which I think is how American elections work these days, but anyway. So the cynic in me says, really, that's all that Wizards of the Coast did when they took over where TSR left off, because when it came to fan creations and IP, TSR was awful. They would sue the phone companies. No, I'm not. That's not like a lead into a joke. If they couldn't shut down bulletin board systems where D&D things were being traded over dial-up BBSs, they would send cease and desist letters to universities if they found out that students were trading D&D campaign notes over the school's electronic messaging network. Uh, and Wizards of the Coast, of course, stepped in and said, "Oh, here's the OGL, and we don't care. Trade your fan stuff. We're way better than they ever were." But there's always the cautious part of me that says, are they really that much nicer? Is it really worth it to try and test them to get, like, if you just said, well, okay, well, Wizards of the Coast is awesome now, and I'll just publish my folio, and then, a dump truck backs up to your house and just empties out cease and desist letters.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah, I don't need that.
yeah, I mean, I would imagine when you were working for Planet Hollywood, that must have been a minefield as far as what you could and couldn't paint and draw and so on, as far as, you know, uh, not even necessarily like, oh, well, we can't show, at that time, Disney and Star Wars. I mean, the idea of Disney buying Lucas was probably nowhere on anybody's radar. Even the most fevered dreams of Disney executives. But so setting aside, don't accidentally draw a Star Wars thing in your drawings, but just how you draw the things you could draw was probably a big was a big concern. Am I right?
Well, now are you talking just Planet Hollywood stuff or Marvel or both?
Just whichever.
Like, okay, so with Marvel, I actually had to go through a process with them to become an approved Marvel artist.
Okay.
I had to supply them um, with a number of drawings and based on instructions that they had given me, and
Hmm.
turn those into their art director, who then green lighted me to work on the characters and stuff like that. So I had to gain approval before I could even touch Spider-Man and
Sure.
the X-Men and Captain America and all the rest of those. So, um, but once I had finished the process, I was like good to go. Never had to worry about anything like that again with them. And along with the Planet Hollywood stuff, anytime we were going forward on a piece or a T-shirt or whatever it was, I provided them with plenty of rough ideas for whatever. My habit was to do like 10 or 12 different ideas for
Hmm.
any particular one product,
Sure.
and that always gave them plenty to either choose from, which was more often than not the case, or to pick a direction to go in, whether it was a character pose for a shirt or a poster or
Hmm.
a particular logo. Um, so I was lucky in that I always gave them enough to go forward with. So there was never any real hesitation or like, oh my God, we have to go all the way back to the drawing board and start again. And oh my God, we're like 3 weeks over time. Uh, so that was the process with both Planet and Marvel. Only with Marvel, it's like, man, I was so hot to work with that stable of characters, and I was so happy when they said, "Yep, you can work on this stuff. We can trust you with it."
Right on. Um, was there ever like, we all talk about the approval process and the pieces that hit it out of the park. Was there ever anything though where Marvel came to you and said, "Look, this is not let's not go this way. Let's maybe, you know, what else you got here because this is not what we wanted at all."
Mm, not anything in particular that I can think of.
Okay.
Um,
Because as you say, once you were past the initial approval process of, this guy's not having us on, he can actually draw and do a really complimentary job of it. You were a part of the process.
yeah, definitely. And in the future, what I'd like to do is like on one of our shows, maybe I can show that stuff, where you can see, okay, here's how I did Spider-Man, here's how I did, Cap, here's how I did Wolverine, the Hulk, et cetera, et cetera. And I got a stack of that stuff.
Right on. And I'm sure everybody wants to see it. I mean, that's I've gotten to see a little bit of it, folks. I'm a little ahead of the curve. That's but I am sure everybody is keen to know it. And I'm going to tell you the reason I asked you about the Marvel refusal is every artist, like, when I was a kid and I would read a run of Marvel comics, I started with X-Men with issue 173, which is a great issue, and I read for probably 5 years X-Men, nothing but X-Men. And then Marvel started selling X-Men classics, which they went all the way back to X-Men #1, and they were just reprints,
Yeah.
But I left off Marvel comics around, any comics really around 85. But there was a run from like 81 to 85 when just X-Men and anything X-Men related. A buddy of mine in middle school had started reading years before that in the mid 70s when he was very young. And he would bring in his mid 70s to then present day X-Men. And of course, it's school. So he'd say, here's 5 issues of the X-Men, double digit numbers after giant size X-Men #1, when, the first run from the 60s to like 77 or 78, they had that break and they introduced all new X-Men.
Yeah.
And I remember reading the John Byrne series, and there's one illustration, and it caught my eye for 2 reasons. One is, at that time, I was also a huge fan of Wendy and Richard Penney's ElfQuest.
ElfQuest. I collected the ElfQuest.
I did too, and then that's one that just got left by the wayside. Because Kitty Pryde is wearing an ElfQuest t-shirt. And I remember Wendy and Richard Penney were gushing about it, and it was a John Byrne illustrated copy of the X-Men, and she has phased through the roof of the X-Mansion, and it's just a cute little scene, and she's saying something. I don't know what John Byrne was thinking that day. I don't know what he was feeling that day. I don't know why he went this way. But he gave Kitty Pryde the biggest cans. And and yes, indeed, you could see her nips pressing up against the shirt. Like, even back then, even at the tender age of, I don't know, 13 or 14 at the time, I was like, isn't Kitty like my age?
Yeah, she's a little young.
And I had started to notice girls, and I was like, there's nobody like that going to my school. Is that a mutant factor thing?
It's a little
But
pedo, isn't it?
yeah, looking back on that, I'm like, and somebody at Marvel okayed that. Stan was like, "Yeah, looks good to me," and just slid the date. At that point in the 80s, I mean, we as D&D fans look back on the crazy times at TSR. Just the little bit I've read, the crazy times at Marvel just knock the insanity at TSR out of the park.
Probably. I wouldn't doubt it.
When it came to some of the office politics and tug of wars, and this person has been exiled to this office and that sort of thing. But yeah, they're just, and the more you look at the drawing, you more realize she's either wearing panties or nothing at all from like the bottom hem of the t-shirt down. I mean, you can only see her from just like a little bit, that, like, Byrne, you dirty old man. You've got a perpetually 15-year-old girl looking like she's ready to pose for Hustler magazine. Why? Why, John? Why? And of course we know why, because it sells. It attracted my eye.
I
So
thought maybe it was the Canadian winters were too cold or something like that.
It could be. He had a thing for She-Hulk too, in a similar
For sure.
vein. Byrne had some stuff going on. But anyway, uh, I was just wondering, and obviously I'm not a kid. Like, hey Tracy, you ever draw Spider Woman a little too dirty for the guys at Planet Hollywood? That's not what I'm asking.
I
Obviously,
can see the commissions coming in now.
We'll never see that folder.
Can you draw
But
that
anyway,
elf naked for me?
oh God, yeah, but yeah, I guess it's a standards and practices thing, right? Like, you couldn't draw you knew what you could do. Was there a standards and practices document then? I guess we'll take the next logical step. Was there a standards and practices, like you can't draw a package on Cyclops, you can't have a word balloon next to Captain America where he's calling Red Skull a motherfucker, something like that.
I'll tell you what they did give me. It was like a notebook that was like yay thick of character model sheets of all of the Marvel characters.
Okay.
Showing, their relative height and how the outfit is supposed to look, and it had the color key was absolutely correct. And I got a book of these, and they were like, this is your Bible on the characters.
Okay.
You need to draw one, go to this page here and use, look at the model sheet. So that's how they covered themselves on that one.
Okay, so
but they never said, yeah, please don't have Cyclops or Nightcrawler like showing their junk in front of Jean. That wouldn't be good.
Yeah, like you said, no naked commissions there, folks. You bring up an interesting point about comic art, because this is something I was looking at in the 90s. I said, I quit reading comics for a long time, but in the early 90s, a friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, Rich Ponder, ran an absolutely magnificent comic book store in my neighborhood called Atomic Pharaoh. And Rich, if you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I still have incredibly fond memories of Atomic Pharaoh comics. But in the coup to end all coups, Image Studios, which at that time was red hot. I guess by that point you had probably heard the buzz around Image, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
I met some Image guys. I've got some of their books, and
very nice guys.
Yeah, definitely. Jim Lee was like super nice to me.
Yes.
And signed a copy of Hardcore #1. It was like a gold edition, and just gave it to me, and he's like here. I was like, okay, cool.
Rich at his comic store landed the Image Comics homage studios tour, which was
cool.
all of the artists from Image Comics except who was doing Max, the Max.
David Keith.
Was it David Keith? I cannot remember, but it became
wait a minute, I think Dale Keown, Keown, I think was Matt.
It's gonna bug me now. That was Sam Keith. That was Sam Keith. So
Sam Keith. Okay, well, I've got part of it.
Sam Keith was sick. Like that leg, he flew back home and took a few days off. So I didn't get to meet Sam Keith, but I met McFarlane, everybody crammed into Rich's little comic store.
Oh, wow.
And myself and one other, or a couple of other people that knew Rich Ponder, who ran the comic store, said, hey, if we can have some posters autographed, if you want us to come down and work crowd control for you, basically make sure people didn't cut in line, getting a stuffed autograph by them, and hey, what do you think of my drawing, and that sort of thing. Can we do that? And they said, absolutely, sure. And it was the first. It was one of those weird Florida spring days, like early enough in spring that when the wind was blowing on the not sunlit side of the building, on the shady side of the building, it was still like 40 degrees, right? So we're standing over there, and we would stamp people's little certificates that said, yes, this was actually autographed by these people, certificate of
Oh yeah,
authenticity.
gotta have your certificate.
So people would come and they would buy a certificate after they went inside and got their stuff signed, and it was a good gig. So we're standing out there freezing our ass off, and this guy comes out, and he is the most oily looking dude in the world.
Oh boy.
He's got a like the shiny, like the shark skin suit, and a power tie, and he comes over and he's like, hey, listen, thanks, you guys have been great. Listen, why don't you come in here? Come on. But despite the like almost used car, I work for the talent, don't talk to the talent kind of guys, he was the warmest and friendliest dude, along with the artist. And all of their craft services stuff, they were just like, yeah, you guys froze your asses off out there. Here, food, eat, sit with us. And so we sat there with the Image Comics guys, just talking about comic books and just whatever. And then just when they would stop from eating or chatting, just like, here's your pile of autographed comics, Bill. Here's your pile, Rich. Here's your pile, Lisa. Just anything and everything we wanted, and they were super duper nice about it.
Yeah, it's nice when you have good experiences like that. That's not always the case with some folks.
Yeah. But the story goes, I told you that story to tell you this story to relate back to your story about drawing. That was the period those guys kind of were like rock stars.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened with the Marvel style guy that you had, but listen, Jesus Christ, Todd McFarlane couldn't draw his way out of a wet paper bag. Look, I get it. I understand. It's super heroic. There's going to be forced perspective. Things are going to be a little stylized. I mean, the ends of people's fingers are not 90-degree angles, despite
right.
how cool, Jack Kirby would draw, Galactus's hand does not bend naturally like that and show stubby square fingers at the end. But it's like every bad art lesson, and this had to have driven you nuts as an artist, as an illustrator. Every bad art lesson seemed to just filter down onto Todd McFarlane.
Yeah.
That had to be like painful looking at that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, because back during that time, I remember I had picked up it was like some Marvel classic cartoons on VHS tape.
Yeah, like the old Spider-Man and Fantastic Four cartoons. Yeah.
Well, they bookended it with these live interviews with Stan and these Image guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like drawing on a drawing table with him standing by, and they're not. I was amazed because I'm used to laying everything out, and then going back and embellishing it, and they were doing things fully formed, just like right there, and they said that's how they did their comics. So I'm like, okay, wait. So you're not like composing everything, and you're not like doing a rough of the figure before you go putting in the musculature and the clothing, et cetera, et cetera. And it was like, no, just take an ink pen and just start hacking it out, like a Spawn or, whatever character it was. And I was like, wow, it must be nice to get paid so much to just like whack out a drawing without any regard as to, everything being, the proportions it should be and the pose and everything like that. Just, I don't know. We got into this realm of very unrealistic artwork, and I think it's kind of hurt comics overall.
Yeah.
Um,
And I apologize to Todd McFarlane, by the way. It's Rob Liefeld was
yeah.
the big sinner. Liefeld. There now I don't know if there's any truth to this. Anyone can say anything over the internet and claim it to be true, but I want this to be true. Someone on a very small forum that I used to frequent decades ago said every year for Christmas they would go buy a copy of Grey's Anatomy at a used bookstore if they had one in stock.
Mhm.
They wouldn't spend a fortune, not like a really nice copy, just an inexpensive softback copy of Grey's Anatomy, and mail it to the fan mail address for Rob Liefeld. I
Uh,
want to believe that's the truth. I want to believe that that every year that he's just like, why do I keep getting these? And just, set it aside, throw it out, donate it, whatever, without it ever dawning on him.
that's funny. I've got Bern Hogarth's Advanced Anatomy, and I would never part with that book for any amount of money. As that was just that was gold. Um, Along with How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, another another great book if you're an artist. You really want to learn your craft. It's really an excellent book.
Yes, I mean, look, I can't draw an anatomically correct stick figure. Okay. But even that said, recognize that if you want to, like, just a basic starting point, how to draw how to draw comics the Marvel way is, it's like the Old Testament of becoming a comic artist. People who never went on to work for Marvel, just have done their own stuff, can point back to that book. It is the OD&D, if you will. See, I'm still talking about role-playing game stuff, fans. But that's it. And by the way, for anyone who wants a good laugh, Google that. Copy what I just pasted. Captain America chest Liefeld.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
I apologize in
terrible.
advance for what you'll see.
It's
That's just one of his many sins, but no, it was it was an interesting time. And you bring up something talking about them literally just drawing ink drawings one
yeah.
go, no sketches, no reposing, no consulting an anatomy book.
Liefeld seemed very proud of the fact.
Just take this to the copy room. This is how it's going to be inked and colored, baby.
Yeah, he was like,
Um,
"Yeah, this is how we do it," and I was like,
um,
"Really,
that would be
really?"
like me tweeting a manuscript to a company in writing, just like, like, no, there's an editing process you have to hone. But that's Rob Liefeld is rich. Todd McFarlane is rich. Sam Keith
Yep.
is rich.
So I guess the joke's on us.
Yeah, Jim Lee is rich. We can talk about our dedication to our respective crafts all we want. I mean, but at the end of the day, but I don't take too much I don't take too much out of that. I mean, people say, well, how can you say XYZ music isn't any good? It's very popular. Millions of people like it. Yeah, millions of people eat at McDonald's. That doesn't mean you should or it's any good.
Yeah, I mean the fundamentals. I mean, I I've been through it too. It's when I was younger. It's like I was very. I wanted to rush everything and just get it done and get to the end of it. And it took me a while to get it through my thick skull that more accurate is better. And I don't mean like photo realistic, but you got to get the fundamentals down for God's sakes. You know, like drawing drawing people. My dad drilled it into me. He's like, drawing a person is so many heads high. You have exactly the space of one eye between the two eyes that you have from corner to corner. Um, Taught me, like, drawing women, that when you draw a woman, her hips are going to be wider than her shoulders are,
Mm-hmm.
to draw a woman accurately. You can't have, women running around where they got, they look like linebackers, where their shoulders are like 3 times as big as their hips are.
I
It's
blame
all
80s
it,
fashion for that.
yeah, exactly. It's all the fundamentals, though, and I often, I think sometimes, well, okay, if I was going to do, let's say, a Patreon, right? And you do, like, what is it? You can, like, pick different levels that people can contribute. And I often wonder, like, would there even be an interest, like, say I go, well, for one of these levels, you and I will sit down and we'll do a one-on-one art lesson together. I don't, in today's world, I don't know if there would be the interest for that. If people are just carving stuff out like Liefeld, I don't know, maybe not.
Well, I mean, I'm just a little quarter of the internet here. I can't really speak to you should do this for financial success, but I think there is absolutely an interest in doing things the right way versus doing things the quick way in a certain subgroup of people. And it's not just old farts like me returning to the fold and saying that. I think there's a genuine interest in it. Let me tell you, when I the when I started the company that would become Guide Key, and I was telling the fellow who pushed me and pushed me to do it, he was like, look, yes, I want to hire you to dungeon master for my company, but I can't just go to my superiors and say, hey, I just want to start writing this guy checks for the next 6 weeks. Who is he? Just some random guy. I had to create a company for his company to interface with.
Sure.
But to say he fostered me, and he knows who he is, to say he fostered me through the process would be an understatement. He took me by the wrists and dragged me through the process. Not that I was resisting, but it was literally a case of me, like, getting a quick education. And when I told him, I said, look, I know that 5th edition is the new thing, and relax, viewers, I'm not about to start off on some polemic about editions. But I said, I think classic D&D is important, and this is why. And I told him, and he said, no, I think that's wonderful. I think that's fantastic. People want simpler things. And he explained to me, he said, look, I'm in a band. And I knew he was in a band, and he's still in a band. He said, I'm in a band, and we play songs from the 1890s. And we started playing songs from the 1890s because there's no copyright on them. So
Ah,
we play folk music from the 1890s. We play places that have seating for 110 people, and 300 people show up to hear us. They'll stand outside the bar and listen. People want simpler, more rustic hands-on things. He said, vintage is huge. Vintage is awesome. And I would put forward, regarding your idea about, could you do a Patreon where I think there would be a huge interest in it. I mean, if there, anyone in the audience wants to back me up on this, I mean, to learn, not just from a guy who created D&D art, but I mean, you're much more than that. Nobody wants to be known for their one hit song when they produced, a dozen albums, right?
sure.
Um, Someone who worked for Marvel Promotions in such a huge key way. You've done your own book covers, and there's so many other pieces of art out there that you've created. I would venture to say that it would be worth that this is the environment. One of the best pieces of advice that I've heard put forward by a creator is Jayashiro Finney. He's got his own YouTube channel. You should definitely check him out. Tell him I said hi. When people have come on and they've asked in his live streams, "Ooh, how should I do this?" And he's had me on a couple of times and posited this, and I believe it to be true. Doing things yourself is absolutely the way to go forward. It really and truly is. And I think personally, you got what it takes. I think you should do that.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, that would be something like in addition to doing, like limited edition
Sure.
art prints and so on and so forth. But I thought, well, maybe that could be like an upper tier thing where it's like, okay, you're there, you're gonna get I'm gonna spend time with you one on one. So I was just mulling over.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it's I again, I think there's an audience for it. I would not rest on that one, my friend. I would definitely go for it. So, uh, before I kind of before things changed, not so much for the better, there were a couple of expert miniature painters that I was courting to take lessons from. Basically, once a week, we'll go over Skype, and I'll have my camera set up, and I'll paint, and you can show me what you're doing, and I can show you what I'm doing. You can walk me through it. And now one of those painters does that on the regular. I reached out to him. He's
Wow.
like, "Oh, my schedule is full now." And I was like, "No, I understand. But that his schedule is full now. I think that's a great opportunity. But you bring
That's
up
very
something,
cool.
you should definitely go for it. I think people would be interested in seeing that. But you bring up something interesting, something else I think people would be interested in. Where could one buy a folio of Tracy Lesch artwork, some Tracy Lesch art prints, if not an actual folio?
Well, if you come to QuestCon, I'm going to have just a bunch of stuff there,
Okay.
and I've asked Bill to kind of hang out with me, so you can see Bill too, and maybe Bill will bring some modules and stuff that you can purchase, or if
I
you want to
might do
get,
that. I might bring a few modules that you can come by and
you
you can
can
get
put them on
signed.
my table.
Yes.
And so I'm going to have prints there. And we'll show those at some point. I did those on a past show, but
mhm.
it's been a while. And I'm also looking at bringing some merch, like I want to have some coffee cups with me. Um, I'm actually putting together a dwarven coffee cup, uh, based on that drawing that you saw a while back.
Yes, I would love to see that.
And let's see. And I'm going to try to have some copies of my book there as well. So if you want to pick up a book, or pick up a book and get it signed, we can do that as well. And I'll have prints there. And but I am looking at putting together uh, a website I can have the prints at, so you can get them anytime. Um, they range from really big ones to small ones, and there'll be different levels of price and so on and so forth. But yeah, come out to QuestCon. I'll have a bunch of stuff there. You can pick up, and as soon as I have anything like online, um, I'll let everybody know. I'll certainly let Bill know, or I'll bring it up during, if we do show. I can bring it up then, and maybe give you a link to it, so on and so forth. So stuff in process. I'm really sorry I don't have a place for you to just go to right now and purchase something, but I swear it's coming. It'll be this definitely within the next couple of months, I hope.
Well, I know we're all looking forward to that. And by the way, I'm just so I shared a link there. I'm going to put this up. Um, if you want to see some of that stuff that Tracy's talking about, that was actually a few months ago. I think just before it was just before Christmas. That you and I talked, yeah, back 3 months ago. And I think you showed off some stuff there, so you can watch that. Like, we've got other shows that Tracy's been on. I don't know why they're not coming up when I look for them on my own YouTube channel, but I know, like, we started talking like ages ago when this was like me and a pinhole camera and a really long string with tin cans on it to talk to my guests before I started refining this into the technically excellent, slick production that you guys see now. But you can check out that earlier interview that I did with Tracy. And also, if you're interested, oh, that didn't copy, did it? Let me see here. If you're interested, I'm not sure how much they've got up here on the QuestCon Orlando page. I sent them a headshot of myself, which no, you smart Alex, it doesn't mean someone shot me in the head. There's plenty of people waiting to do that. Well, maybe that should be my next Patreon, like $10 million tier Patreon. I'll take one right here.
Oh, geez.
I should. There's idle rich weirdos out there that might be like, I've got some Bitcoin. Yes, they'd have to hunt the most dangerous lame. But anyway, QuestConOrlando.com.
I'll spend Dogecoin on that.
I'll convert all my Dogecoin to Wheatcoin and then convert that to Bitcoin and then convert that to dehydrated food. And
it's
pay
Gamma
for
World again.
It's Gamma World again, exactly. Pay for to Domars. Convert it to Domars.
Oh, I before you just reminded me of something. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, that's all right. I think we're at the rambling stage.
We gotta have the guac. I want to be at the guac.
Oh, of course, you're going to be at the guac. I assumed that was going to happen. I don't know what we'll do as far as guest appearances go. We'll set something up, but you tell me what you want to do. And fans, if there's something that you want to see Tracy do other than, his face in a postage stamp size spot on your screen while he plays in a game, let us know, let me know anyway, and I'll make him do it. I'll stand behind him with a shock prod and, draw.
I'll dance.
Draw.
I'll dance like a monkey.
Absolutely. Is there any other way to dance? I don't think there is.
No.
But QuestCon Orlando is where we'll be, and I put the link in there. They don't. This is not a criticism of them, by the way, but I don't see anything yet for events. They have an Instagram, and I mean, it's months away. It's August, guys. It's like, when Florida just kind of elevates on hydraulic jacks and just touches the surface of the sun. And then stays that way till I think mid-November is when we start to cool off again. Cool off. Let me just put that in air quotes. Most of you people, I've literally had friends come to Florida in late November, early December and say, it's still summer here. What's wrong with you people? Well,
Yeah, we're different.
But anyway, no, we'll have a fun time at QuestCon. Heat or no heat, we'll be in an air-conditioned building. Knock on wood when I say that. One of my favorite stories about Todd and Anna is there was a horror movie convention. It was a small one, but it was still respectable sized here in Florida, and the hotel that it was at lost complete, all power was lost. And in Florida in September, I think was when it was, a convention hall with a few hundred people milling about it, many hundreds of people, without air conditioning equals death. I don't say that. I mean, there's a serious risk of heat stroke. You got the guy who played Jason Voorhees in Friday the 13th, 67, signing
Right.
autographs. So you got 55 people lined up waiting for that autograph. And the table he's sitting at is 6 feet wide. And he's got a guy who used to draw for Fangoria on his left, and the lady who recorded the Scream for the movie Scream on his right. Suddenly, the temperature goes up over 120 degrees. So Todd and Anna, they had a much larger shop at that time. They moved all their browsers to the walls and said, bring your convention here. They had a giant retail store space, and they had the convention there. And I always thought that was so awesome of them. They're wonderful people.
Yep.
Mobius says, grumble, grumble, snow, grumble, grumble. Yeah, well, grumble, grumble, alligators on meth, grumble, grumble. How about that? But anyhow, so yes, QuestCon, we'll figure something out for the guac. And yeah, we'll keep on having fun as we always do around these parts. You got anything else, or have we chewed all the flavor out of tonight's piece of fruit stripe, Tracy? What do you think?
Well, I think we've tortured the fans enough for one evening.
Oh no, I don't think we've ever tortured them enough. But if you're starting to tire, if your arm is getting a little worn out from whipping them, then certainly we can reconvene at a later time.
Yeah, I'd love to come back if you'll have me.
Oh, good Lord, yes.
Sure.
You're practically a co-host at this point. You are the Warren Zevon to my David Letterman. You are always welcome here. And except you're much more alive and I'm much less gropey of staff around here. But anyway, so thank you, though, for stopping by. And you will be back again in the future. You will see each other. I personally think, and maybe this is overly optimistic of me. Damien said, "Oh, that's worth being up on the screen." Florida Man isn't a person; it's an eldritch being that lurks in Florida humidity, hunting for hosts. I mean, you're right. It's the meth gators of Tindalos. We come out of the angles of theme parks and infest you, but oh, I think the show must be over. Zeus just put his head down and shoved my closed office door open.
There you go.
But anyway, yes, you will be at the guac. We will be at QuestCon. But I think the guac will happen before QuestCon. I'm optimistic that we'll get those last 27, 28, because we're currently sitting at 972 subscribers.
Cool.
972 subs. We're almost to the point where we're going to be, having that con, and I'm looking forward to it.
It'll get there.
Because I have my guest. I have a guest. I have the first guest, panelist or whatever. We'll figure out something fun for Tracy to do. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap up then, guys. I've said more than I've said any other word at this point. So thank you everyone for being here. Thank you to you, Tracy.
Yeah.
Thank you,
and thank you guys for your questions. Hope I answered everything.
Indeed.
Appreciate it. But appreciate you guys out there. Thank you for the love, and thank you for my brother from another mother, Bill Sylvie.
Always, my friend. Always. I do want to take
par excellence.
I do want to take a moment before we wrap up tonight, though. I do this every night. I want to thank the Patreons, the people who can help me do cool stuff like have better studio lighting. So I want to thank Digital Discord, Joshua Garlock, Lord Corion, Ricky Maru, Mobius, Kevin Reynolds, Joseph Lucas, Doomsword Deathmaster, Mark Simpson, Damien X247, James F. Keck and his entire observatory, William Smith, the Dungeon Minister, and Manny Wall. Thank you all so much for your contributions to the show. it makes it a little bit more fun, makes it a little bit more accessible. I have been your host, Bill Sylvie. This has been my guest, Tracy Lesch. You guys have an absolutely wonderful evening, and we'll see you around next time. I will be back tomorrow. We will have RPG Elite will be here. Servant of Shiloh RPG Elite will be here tomorrow night, along with my co-host Kyle. So we have another guest tomorrow, guys. That's the quality of programming you get. We got another guest tomorrow night. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then Friday
Don
night,
Rickles will be by later in the week with
Don Rickles
Sammy
will
Davis
be by
Jr.
later in the week. Yeah. Oh, don't I wish? But anyhow, and then Friday we'll play some Gamma World. Okay. Okay. All right. Have a wonderful week, guys. We'll talk to you later. Peace out.
Take care.